Welcome to Laptop Radio. Today's topic is on the decentralization with an activist mindset with Deora.Earth with Max and Johann. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Where are you guys located?
I'm located in Berlin, and I don't know what else to say.
I met you guys in Berlin. That was awesome. Tell me about yourself.
Max, you start.
Okay, I start. So yeah, I'm based in Berlin too. From my background, so I started with innovation consulting for a couple of years, and then I stopped working there, tried to do something on my own, did a little bit of that in here, and in last year, 2019, in August, I stumbled upon Johann, and we are working on this project called Deora now for quite a while, and looking to kind of get it into the next phase and stage.
How about you, Johann?
My background is, I guess, in computer science, and I stumbled into Bitcoin somewhere in 2012. And I've tried to do different projects in the Bitcoin space, and I repeatedly got very frustrated with kind of the hyper-capitalist attitude, or how do you say, final goal that many of the crypto projects develop when they go forward. And that made me repeatedly kind of very sad about the state of the world and that we're not able to save it. And then I realized that we can do other things with blockchain as well, not only money. And I met Max and Simon end of last year, and we got together to start this thing called Deora, and now I'm motivated for blockchain again.
What is Deora and what does it stand for?
So Deora actually stands for Decentralized Agora. A little bit of background information to Agora. Agora is kind of like a central public space back in ancient Greek, and it means some kind of like gathering place or assembly. And what people did there was discuss politics, discuss kind of social matters and all this kind of sense. And so it was like a get together of people where the topic and the discussion was in the middle of everything. And we thought that was pretty decent name, and of course combining it with decentralized and having this kind of mindset and also the vision that we're having in mind. We thought this is kind of like a fitting name for Deora itself.
Awesome. I didn't even know that. Really cool. And why are you working on Deora? What is your driving purpose behind it?
Let me look up the driving purpose from our organization's purpose. I think that's the easiest, and I will read it out to you.
Okay.
In just a little second. So, Deora's driving purpose is to upgrade humanity, to empower civil society, to take the next evolutionary step to social and economic coordination. Max, maybe you want to interpret that.
Yeah, I mean, it sums it up pretty well. So just some background information. We are also organized in a holocratic way. So we thought about, okay, why not thinking about the big problems and how to coordinate and the decentralized and general matters. So we want to coordinate in that sense as well inside the team. So and for this, we set up an evolutionary purpose. And Johann just defined that evolutionary purpose. And this sums it up quite well, which means that we really want to help any kind of movement and a kind of gathering of people that is out there, or even organization in any sense, to coordinate more in a self-sovereign way, meaning that we want to give them tools at hand to make decision making easier, to even make like collaborative decision making easier, that everyone has a say in a certain sense, and to prioritize certain interests inside big groups or even like small groups, and helping them forming an organization that is independent and kind of sovereign and self-sustaining, other impacts from the outside.
I love your project. I think within the blockchain space there are a couple movement, right? There's for once it seems like people can invest with fractionalized investing. You don't have to buy an entire Bitcoin. You can buy a little bit of Bitcoin, and it's global. And it seems like people would have access. And with crowdfunding as well, people can get their ideas funded. Um, and within each company, you know, there's governance, right? Because who should run the company? Traditionally, we have the CEO, and as you can see for Bitcoin, for example, we really don't know who the leader is. So I want I mean, I really think that that is really important, and the whole governance part is really governed by, you know, someone has an idea and then you vote on it to see whether, you know, the organization, whether it's best interest for the organization. So let's talk a little about voting. What is quadratic voting, and how is it different from regular voting?
Good. Let me start on that. So
Sure.
with regular voting, you get kind of a binary signal at the end, right? So you find out if there is a majority for or against something. But you don't actually know how different people feel about the decision. If you really kind of have a vocal minority that is maybe strongly opposed to your decision, or whether the whole group that made a decision just had kind of a weak priority on this. And if they were on the wrong side on the vote, maybe they don't care that much. The idea of quadratic voting is kind of to upgrade that signal to be more than binary. So that means if you have a vocal minority, that you can actually visualize that. And how does that work? Well, quadratic voting kind of tries to balance the strong priorities of a minority against the weak priorities of majorities. And it does so by, well, first of all, starting off with a vote budget. So where you usually just have one person, one voice. In quadratic voting, you have a voice budget. We call them voice credits sometimes as well. And when there is multiple decisions, you can choose how to allocate these voice credits. So for a single voice credit, you get a single vote on the topic, but you can, for example, invest 4, and then you get 2 votes on the topic, or you can invest 9 and you get 3 votes on the topic. You get the idea. It's quadratic. And but of course, if you invest more voice credits on one topic, then you have to kind of save them on other topics. So that way you can kind of send a lot of signals on a lot of topics, or save your voice credits for something that is very dear to you, and then send a stronger signal. Max, did I forget anything about that?
No, perfect summary.
Awesome. And I think with voting, if I'm a voter, you know, my judgment impacts the final decision of what I would vote. And I think I spoke a little about our relationship with money, whether whether I have a attitude of scarcity or generosity or abundance. So if I have that scarcity mindset, I might not want to provide that vote. But if I'm very generous, I would provide more votes. And I think my personality and my personal experience also play a part in influencing how I vote. How do you deter that? And what are your insights about our judgment and how we vote?
So also a little bit background of this, because I think in theory you can always say, okay, we have like kind of the distribution of people investing, in the sense of investing only one vote on a certain issue. So you have this kind of Gaussian distribution. And so what that means is you have a lot of people just giving one vote, then you have a couple of people just giving two, and because it's quadratic, it extends to a certain extent. So we thought of, okay, we have this theory going on, so let's bring it into practice. And what we did back in September was, together with a European party called Volt, we did a project. Or on the other hand, we developed a quadratic voting web app for them. And I don't know if you want to say now to this topic, but later I think we have more time to talk about it. But we found it interesting to see the results of this voting that the members of this party had. And we thought about, okay, how is the distribution different from the theory itself? And we see some minorities, of course, investing a lot of their coins and a lot of their credits they're having into certain subjects they're really interested in. So we give them the opportunity to weigh in the minority voice to a certain extent. And we really had time to see here, okay, is it possible that the minority is kind of outweighing the majority to a certain extent? And in practice, it was interesting to see in the sense that you, of course, see those investments happening from the minority side. But it really sees the benefit of quadratic voting, that you can outweigh it with kind of having, not outweighing it is maybe the wrong word, it's kind of really just balancing out and taking into consideration both sides of the majority that only gives one, and the minority that only gives a lot. And if you, for instance, thinking about a future of using quadratic voting where you can send credits to a certain delegate, for instance, and or you can have it on an open market. These are all concepts that are available out there. You kind of get limited to a certain extent, since at the quadratic rate, if you have 1 million voice credits, these 1 million voice credits are only worth 1,000 on a certain issue if you really want to spend all of your voice credits just on one topic that you want to influence to a certain extent. So yeah, money is kind of a big problem, or let's say having a lot of voice credits in a certain sense, but quadratic voting is making it really possible to outweigh it.
Yeah. I think Michelle also asked how we can kind of deal with this scarcity mindset, or what happens if people are very generous.
Yeah.
And I think what this richer signal of quadratic voting gives you is actually the ability to step back and to recognize that there is maybe a vocal minority, or that just making a decision by numbers is not the right thing, because you would actually exert some kind of violence towards maybe a minority that wouldn't be heard. And then I think it's the responsibility of like a democratic organization to kind of step back and see that maybe it shouldn't go forward and just make a decision at this point, but kind of find a compromise or find a solution that works with everyone. And I think it helps us to kind of get out of this competitive mindset where, there is alliances that put pressure on each other and try to create more collaborative, more creative solutions to a problem. So I think just by having a many-dimensional result, we get this possibility.
And what is the relationship between a quorum and a consensus? Consensus in the blockchain context has to do with validation and trust. Quorum in the political organization context means 51%. What is a relationship between them in pertaining to governance?
Max doesn't want to answer. Okay. That's a really interesting question. So you're saying quorum in organizations is 51% and consensus is kind of, yeah, how do you say, like the network moving forward, or a
Correct.
decision kind of being made in the cryptocurrency space?
Correct. On the
Yeah.
consensus level, they get validated. Then you have trust, so that it could be trustless, right? So the relationship between consensus, which is trustless, and you get validated, and then quorum, which is really the number, right? So you basically have a meeting, someone raised their hand, 51% agree, you have, or a majority of people show up, you have a quorum, what is the relationship between that?
Well, I think those are really hard to compare. So if we think about consensus in the blockchain space, then often this is related to protocols, right? So that means that, a network or some kind of protocol continues according to some pre-agreed rules. And organizations, when they make decisions, they often face situations that they have never encountered before, that are bigger than them, so to say. In a protocol, you can never meet anything that is bigger than you because everything is bits and bytes. But as an organization facing like reality, there are things like climate change, and then you're like, wow, I don't have a recipe for this. And even making a 51, like even having quorum on a decision doesn't necessarily mean that this decision will lead to some kind of like effective, how do you say, action towards a challenge. And I think we can learn something here from Holacracy, that is a governance model that is used in organizations that deal with flat or no hierarchies. And what Holacracy prescribes is not actually voting on decisions and kind of finding quorum, but to facilitate a process in where you make proposals and then people bring in objections. So what we humans are really good at is not like counting things or any like of these things, but what we're actually good at is like feeling potential, like feeling that something could be better in the world, and feeling tensions in the sense that I'm not the best version of myself. I can't express myself freely or something like that. And if we take these, very subtle feelings sometimes, and we are able to articulate them, then from these very creative solutions can arise. And sometimes when people make proposals, of course, there is a range of experiences. And the way that holacracy organizations deal with that is that anyone is able to make a proposal, and only if someone is able to prove that this proposal will harm the purpose of the will harm the expression of the purpose of the organization, only then a proposal should be rejected. So in that way, holacratic organizations, for example, they move forward much more often, like testing different approaches, as long as these approaches are not harming the organization or the people in there. And I think from this, we could learn a lot kind of going forward with organizations. I don't necessarily think that like a quorum is the only way to deal with challenges, and see how there is a similarity between actually this how do you say, the processing of tensions and objections towards what we know in protocols with consensus. So as long as something follows the protocol, it is executed and it is accepted in the network. Same like with the network consensus that we have in proof of stake. And in holacracy, it is these proposals and then the objections to the proposals. So I think those two are much easier to compare. I hope I answered your question.
You did, and the reason I asked that question is because, you know, I think the world is changing. I think governance is changing. Before we count the voice of the people and the majority of the people. That's why we have a quorum, so that each voice counts. And then we have consensus, and it's cool. I mean, the protocols are cool, and you know, every consensus protocol has a different way of measurement or validation. You know, you have proof of work, proof of stake. And I'm just really wondering, you know, how, as we move forward, those two concepts play a role in governance and how they will run with each other and intersect with each other sometimes. You know, because you will have a bunch of people that will learn how to not trust each other, or they don't have to trust each other anymore, and certain things may be validated. So I think it will be interesting, and thus I ask. And I wanted to talk a little about profiling and human review. So there's a lot of AI. With AI, you know, certain people could be discriminated against, especially in governance. You know, when people are influential or when they're wealthy, they might have a bigger, more impactful voice. And AI can discriminate certain people because of the race or gender or whatnot. And human review becomes a little bit important, I think. So, how do you think human review play a part in voting and making decisions?
Hmm. So I think looking at the structure we're having at the moment, where a lot of internet or big internet companies are taking profits by kind of mining and brokering and selling any personal data that is out there. I think this is kind of course, a big challenge that everybody is facing at the moment. I mean, this is more on another thing of having big data corporates, or on the other hand, having companies that own a lot of data about yourself. Profiling in this sense, and I think this is where also kind of distributed ledger technology is also a really nice solution on the other hand, to kind of outweigh it. To understand correctly, you think of having, for instance, if people vote on a certain issue as a minority, and people might actually get a profile out of them and kind of redirect that vote to the certain person, that this have kind of some kind of consequences for them, or
Correct. I
how
mean,
would you?
there might be robots or bots
Mm-hmm.
that may have a voice. You know,
Ah,
for
okay.
example, if you look at all the exchanges, there are a lot of
Yeah.
value, and those value may not be real, right? So with voting could be done by a bot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and if you look at some of the voting abuses in the United States, maybe, you know, there are like a lot of the Twitter accounts that influence people to vote. They might be not. They might be synthetic, right? They might be fake.
True.
So my concern is really about fake identities, voting, or making a profile. And if we use AI algorithms in voting, we might also be profiling some of the users and influencing them to vote on a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
True.
so a lot of times with the data that you get, because with blockchain and with blockchain technology, you'll get a lot of data. So at some point, does human review play a big part in looking at some of these data and ensuring and making sure that they're real and that the company is not conducting any kind of profiling?
Mm-hmm.
I think I can talk to that a little bit. So with with the constitutions that we kind of have in Western countries, we're used to three basic rights, like, like freedom and expression and kind of to realize ourselves, and this right to assemble. And when we kind of go into the digital space, then it's not clear if we have the same rights. So obviously we can speak our voice and act as we like, but we don't really have a right to assemble as such right now. So if you look into what has happened with the elections in the US, there have been like bots and opinions, and these how do you say, like these influences have kind of come from abroad to manipulate the voters' opinion. And that is exactly because the people cannot really assemble like freely and communicate directly, but there is kind of this feudal lord, which is Facebook, that stands in the middle. And every time when one person tries to talk to another, there is this intermediary that kind of tries to make a profit from it. And in a setup like that, I guess there can never be kind of a neutral assembly. And obviously then echo chambers are created, data is used to kind of profile people and, maybe like manipulate groups of people that know each other towards like purchasing a certain product, or maybe even voting a certain way, by triggering basically all the people around you that to say something very similar at related times. And then you maybe start thinking, oh, if all my friends are thinking this, maybe I should consider that as well. And I think that is very dangerous. And there are certain technologies that we can kind of go and use. And as we know, like one aspect of quadratic voting is that the identity is very important. So obviously, if you have multiple fake identities, you can use your voice credits more effectively. And if you have bots on Facebook, you can also influence more people. So if we cannot take our digital self and use it online and know that we talk with other real humans, then we are losing this right for assembly. And I think with self-sovereign identities, and this is something that we can use ledger technology to build, we can go and we can kind of take this digital space and build communication systems that are free of profiling, of influence, of echo chambers. But it is still a long way to go, because also we expose ourselves when doing that. So for example, if I use my address to cast a bunch of transactions with my self-sovereign identity, again, there's profiles that can be made of me, right? So I think here we kind of have to tap into technologies like zero knowledge proofs and other ways like multi-party computation to really act on the internet without creating these profiles, but still have a self-sovereign identity. So I think there is a way, but it is not clearly visible yet.
Yeah. So my question about synthetic identity is that not only could they influence and persuade, they could also organize as groups. So I can have 10 people who have fake identities related to each other on Facebook or have LinkedIn, so that you don't even know that they are fake. They could have an AI picture generated by an AI. And so they have a whole movement of a synthetic identity or group. And they, of course, is from an owner and works for the owner. So it seems like it's really hard to fight against that without using awesome technology.
Yeah, I don't even know if it ever is possible to fight against those. But then I wonder why we would kind of put the digital space first. I think that's what you're kind of proposing a little bit, to kind of say that only like the internet is a place where we can live and exist, where actually all that we do on the internet is embedded in like the physical world. So we kind of need the air to breathe and the environment around us to kind of work. If we don't have forests and rivers, um, then we don't have stable weather, and then we also don't have the internet. So I wonder if it is not, that something that I wonder why we don't kind of go back and look at the resources that really keep us alive and see that we are embedded in something bigger, which is the ecological kind of environment that we exist in, and only use the internet to the extent where it's needed to kind of achieve global coordination, to kind of speak with one voice as humanity. I think we can do that if we kind of relate back to also have local kind of assemblies and live in local real communities. Then I don't think as like some army of trolls on the internet can influence anything that we do.
I agree with you. I just think that the world and the future is becoming more and more digital. People are running for government, and they are using social media for campaigning and using data to target certain groups of people, knowing where they are based on their location, their likes and dislikes. And it's not just Facebook, it's YouTube and other technology as well. And I'm concerned because I think, when we talk about governance, we control the digital space as well as the physical space, because I think face to face is very important. So I went to Berlin and I met you, and I trust you guys because I met you. But also I also communicate with you digitally, because I'm not physically there right now. And I think, with VR, AR, just AI, edge, I think the digital space will expand just beyond that, right? We'll become more analytical. We'll become more judgmental online, right? It's just not about data anymore. So, regarding voting, and that is related to voting and governance, because with every decision that we make, we have to basically make a decision on it. So, and the decision is influenced by the physical space as well as the digital space. And I think this is a good transition to the next question, which is, what is an activist mindset?
Maybe I jump on this. I would say an activist mindset, which I would say consists of several steps, or at least ingredients, you could say. I think it starts kind of like questioning the status quo. I can also see it on my own viewpoint. It's kind of gathering knowledge. It's this kind of intuition that there is something maybe not quite right in your own sense. You start to really kind of get the question out of what is wrong with this current being, with the status quo that is maybe in the politics side, maybe in the social side, economy, all this kind of topics that are relevant today. And I think combined with a certain ideology that you're having, creates this kind of inner pull towards something that you think, okay, that you have to find yours let's say, like, I would say, like, finding your own strengths towards a certain issue or something that you really want to change in this system that we're having. So I would combine like an activist mindset, something that you really want to question the current state, having a certain ideology. I think I would frame it in a more general sense, and to finding your own point or your own strengths to support and your ideology and your vision towards something that you want to change. I don't know, Johann, what is your...
Yeah, I think Max summarized really well that this feeling that there is something not right, that, you know, this gap between those that are on the ins and profiting from the system and those that are on the outs and kind of being exploited by the system is widening, and you don't even know which side you stand on, but you don't want to stand on either of those. And what we've seen a lot of movements kind of come up in the last years, like be it Occupy Wall Street or Fridays for Future or Extinction Rebellion. And they start with like a strong message, a clear message, and with a lot of activism. And then when they hit mainstream society, it kind of comes to this clash. And rather than, you know, rather than being able to convince the majority of the population and really have a political influence, more of these movements fail and are not able to achieve anything, but rather kind of create a sense of conflict. And this is exactly where we don't want to go. So, for example, Occupy Wall Street had no measurable impact on the financial system. The Arab Spring led to actually a worse regime in Egypt than there was before. And we wonder, why is it that these broad movements are not able to capture the mood of kind of the mainstream, even though all of us kind of hear this sound of this, you know, music playing. There's a better world that could be out there, but it is not, and something is wrong with the current. And I think out of this kind of feeling, we see a need to help these movements to be able to be more impactful in a political sense. And why is it that they are not able to change society? And I think it is because they have a strong message, but then they are not local, and they don't have the luxury of trust and communication between each of the individuals. They need to achieve this in a very wide network. And I think this is where we can come in with software, and we can facilitate the bonds between humans. And rather than, you know, breaking things down and kind of being violent with top-down decisions or maybe 51% quorums, we think we can kind of create decision processes that are free of violence and that can create consensus in a wide movement.
Yeah, I mean, coming from Berkeley, I think there are a few movements that have become a little bit more successful, right? So you have the civil rights movement with, you know, MLK. He was, you know, probably scared, like very scared, and he did it anyways. And there were a lot of, I mean, race relations, there's a lot of subtle discrimination, but, you know, it's improved a little tiny bit, right? Which is better than nothing. And then there's a gender movement, right? You know, women finally got a chance to vote, especially in the United States. And then there's a woman who's really against alcohol, right? So you had the prohibition basically passed. So I think a lot of some of the movements, you know, are impactful. But I think, you know, even with blockchain and cryptocurrency, you know, normal people are really afraid of it because they don't understand it. And it takes time for the population to catch up. you know, unless there is a big company, who may use a fake blockchain to promote it, right? And that might serve that particular purpose, right? In the ecosystem. But, I think for climate change and a lot of these things that we care about in the world, I think it should thrive or survive if people have a chance and opportunity to come together. I think I read a long time ago that the number one reason that organization fail is not because of the purpose. It's all internal, right? And I think with your solution, I think it kind of helps because governance basically help the companies make better decisions so there it prevents internal conflict.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a lot of interesting topics out there. There have been successful movements, and they have been often successful when kind of the body of decision makers overlapped perfectly with the body of people that have been affected by something like race, like inclusion in political processes. The way that climate change and like the big problems that we face today, the climate crisis and these other like, the eco side of our planet, those are different because the body of people that decides and the body of people that is affected doesn't overlap. It is that, there is a minority in every country. You can, whatever you call them, those that are really exposed to ecosystems that are currently kind of dying, or they are just um, how do you say, like they have an international mindset and they understand what is happening, but they are minorities, and in each of the countries they are not able to make a political change, and then the international society or how do you say, like the um, the different countries in the world, when they go out and they try to ratify a protocol like the Paris Agreement, then obviously they don't bring this like strong support, and because there is not this overlap that I described before, these decisions cannot be made effectively. And I think you talked to the topic of like trust in blockchains.
Mhm.
And I think we kind of have this magic word blockchain out there, and we don't often really understand what it's about. But there is a core technology inside of blockchains, which is essential here. Just so when you talk to Facebook, the way you authenticate with Facebook, the way you claim your identity is there is a shared secret between you and the Facebook server. And then you expose the fact that you know this secret. And then the Facebook server lets you take your data or remote control your data, right? What blockchain has taught us is to kind of, use public-private key cryptography directly, which means that we have a wallet and we can sign a message. So we are not relying on any other server, any other infrastructure to be able to kind of, control our identity. And I think this is the big step that we're taking now with humanity, is kind of going away from shared secrets towards public-private key cryptography. And then blockchain has additional benefits, but I think we're just at this first step, and it already frees us from these feudal lords like Facebook and LinkedIn and other platforms that kind of control our data now.
And what's the difference between a political party and a movement? Do you identify with a specific political party or movement? I mean, would you pick a side?
Um, so starting with the first one, so I wanted to add just one little thing. I think those movements that we had out there, all the different ones, if they succeed or not in the end, I think what they do in most senses is they wake up a lot of people out there and make them aware of certain situations. And if this is something, I mean, this is also like kind of a success in itself. And I think we wouldn't be here if we wouldn't be aware of a lot of things that are bad out there, and a lot of movements that actually pointed us to certain challenges that we are facing, problems. And I think this is also the main difference between a movement and a political party, where movements are also ideology driven, or actually having a certain issue or certain topic they are addressing, and want to find solution towards it, or having kind of solution already in mind. Parties are more concerned about, maybe not like generalizing it, but also concerned about their power structures, no matter the policy that is actually discussed at the moment. So parties also are in this construct of the political system in itself, and they are aware of their situation, and of course are aware of the voters' needs in the end, or the, let's say, also the media and how they are perceived towards them. And so I'd say parties are well more tangled in the system in itself than movements are, which gives them way more freedom to express certain issues that they're having. And towards this, I'd say we are political in any sense, but we are not identified ourselves with one certain political movement, you could say. So we are kind of like, of course, we want to have this neutral space for everyone to come in and to express their issues, or the let's say the things they want to push forward inside society. But we are not willing to kind of pushing out people from the platform or any kind of idea what we're having.
So, Max, is it even possible to not be political? Because from like the
I didn't
start,
I said we are not political. I said we are political.
Okay.
He said that you guys are political. Like, and it's hard not to be political, but I think it's good to be aware of that, right? Like to understand that, hey, you know, this is what we believe in, you know, to be neutral, especially providing a governance solution.
Of course. I mean, we all are really politically interested in a sense. So, yeah.
What are some challenges do you, as a company, think about to ensure fairness in the voting system or decision making systems?
How do we ensure fairness?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a really difficult question, because the moment when you have a ballot, it might already, even before the first vote is cast, it might already be too late to kind of ensure fairness, because it's really about the process, how a ballot is created. If people are not informed and they haven't participated in creating a ballot, in writing down the questions and defining the scope, they might already kind of be be on the outside. So I think it is very much about like activating people and make them participate in decision making, but then you quickly realize that not everyone can participate in every decision. And there is a couple of very interesting algorithms that kind of try to deal with that. So I think, for example, the holographic consensus of DAO-Stack tries to address that, where you have decisions and they're kind of made locally, but if someone emphasizes a specific poll, then more tokens are staked on it, and more people actually need to cast their vote to make the decision kind of valid. And this balance between participation and scalability is really the challenge. I don't think it can be solved, but through the ability to kind of use these ledger technology to have more complex algorithms in creating the ballot and counting the ballot, we can kind of approach, I think, some kind of equilibrium. So yeah, I think that's my 2 cents.
And I think with office politics in nonprofit as well as enterprises, as well as the right for people to come together, it's kind of hard to prevent that, right? I mean, you have confidentiality, but I think people sometimes do talk. And there's an emphasis on competition. If you have a competitor, you don't want to talk to the person because you don't want people to copy. And I understand that. How do you see, though, the future of collaboration? How do we collaborate in an environment where there are politics? There might be one or two person who will hire someone because they might have more power and can make decisions that impact another. And the right to assemble, right? So you have a lot of people who would play golf and they make decisions there, and that would exclude certain gender or certain people who would not be able to or not invited to assemble, like play golf, and they were excluded from opportunities, right? How does the future of collaboration look like, and how could we modify that?
So we're also looking into like private organizations, and Johann and or we in the team, we just recently read that book, Reinventing Organizations. I think that fits quite well on how we identify ourselves on the view of future collaboration. And this book is really interesting. It divides certain organization aspects of theories into colors, and what you just described was more like you could say orange color, or also might maybe red color in a sense, which means you have like hierarchy, top bottom decision making, and also like KPI driven, numbers. The humans are just like resources. As
Sales.
yes, exactly. And it's like you see all those kind of detaching this human aspect or like social aspect from this work environment, and just crushing everything down into numbers and making it more efficient. And we see, of course, I mean, when we look out and we see all the challenges that are ahead of us, we see that this is kind of hitting a wall at the moment. And we kind of stumbled upon this, you call it like green organization, where everything is fine, family, brother, sister, father. And then you question, okay, where's this, who's the father, who's the sister? So you still have this hierarchy. But they really want to make everything cool and fine and looking. And the next evolutionary step towards this organization style is called kind of teal organization, and we also think this is a really interesting approach. This takes three things into the main focus, starting from self-management to wholeness, I think it was, and evolutionary purpose. And I think we started the beginning with the video with our evolutionary purpose. I mean, Johann pointed that out. You could describe it as like the star we are following during the night, and so far we had a lot of nights. And that means we just drive, and every challenge that comes up, we try to find solutions to it. So we don't have like a strategy for the next 5 years. We don't have a plan. I mean, we have a plan, don't get me wrong, but we really try to figure out what comes up with the challenges, and really gonna see, okay, where can we fit in. And wholeness, on the other hand, means that nobody is detaching private life and work life, meaning that you don't take a mask on when you go to work, that you can't express yourself, can't express your feelings, your thoughts on anything. So, and you have this kind of more conclusion or like inclusion happening. Uh, And then you have this first topic of self-management, where people are really self-managed in a sense, and combining all these three is taking organizations into a new step of like also holocratic sense, where this is
I
taking.
think, Max, there is also this nice concept in the green or teal organization of the advice process. So I think Michelle has been asking about how to do decision making where the right people are included. And the advice process, it addresses exactly that. So in a green or teal organization, everyone can make a decision about his or her work. But if the decision affects other people, then there is a simple two-step advice process. So the first step is ask an expert. Try to find someone who is kind of the best at this field. So if you're buying a machine, maybe your coworker that is usually dealing with the machine is the best person to ask. And then the second step is ask someone who's directly affected. So maybe that is another coworker that is working on some product that the machine produces. And once you've addressed these two people, you're free to take in their advice. You don't need to follow like what they say, but with this, you can go out and make your decision and act that into your organization. And it is surprising how well this advice process then actually works out way better than how hierarchical decisions or decisions in like power structures are made.
So I love the wholeness aspect and asking for advice. I mean, I think we can move into collaboration. We did a conference on a nuclear fusion one year, and we invited one of the top 4 companies to come together and share knowledge. And I think that's kind of important to make innovation, to change the world, and not just think about money. If there's a way that we can share in credit, say, hey, X, Y, and Z work with me to create this, instead of I did this, I want a promotion. It might be better. And then also knowledge sharing, right? I don't mind that person A will work on this, and I don't mind teaching him or her how to do it, because by doing that, they can then share their knowledge with other people and help better society, in their own way, right? And I think as we grow, I think knowledge sharing and collaboration is going to be very important, because I think every one of us has a different skill set, that we can share. We could be good at certain things. And I think we need all those skill set to survive and thrive, right? I mean, especially when you're doing startups. but even in big corporations, like people are just there. Some people are just there to collect paychecks, right? But that is not going to drive innovation. Innovation is driven when you allow people to object to something, or to whether it's an idea or a decision, and make changes to it, right? Because there's no way you can compete with startups and innovation that is have that agility to change and grow really fast. So I'm really excited about the future of collaboration. I think it's really cool. And I love the wholeness, because I think allowing people to, there's a book written by Eric Berne called You're Okay, I'm Okay, You're Okay. And it kind of speaks to that collaboration mindset, but it basically says that, hey, you're okay and I'm okay. And it's such a simple thing to say, that we're not competing, you're good and I'm good. That's all it's saying. And they wrote a book called Games People Play. He wrote a book called Games People Play. It's about transaction analysis. Check it out, it's really cool.
Cool.
And I think it'll coincide with your organization book. The last couple questions I have is about identity. I just wanted to give it focus, because I think identity is very important. For your solution, how do you use identity? How do you solve it? How do you integrate identity into your solution?
So far, identity, I think it's a big topic at the moment, especially self-sovereign identity. And with our first project, we kind of skipped around it by using existing authentication processes that are at the venue. And of course, if you have a event, you can always say, okay, is this person real in front of me or is he not? So we have this problem of identity solved in a simple and analog way. Talking about maybe like an idea of a platform of enabling quadratic voting on a longer sense than not only on an event. We of course have the problem of identity, and Johann said it before with this problem of cyber attacks and quadratic voting being really affected by having computers on the other side. We have a lot of initiatives out there that are looking into this field. We are also looking into this field. We did some hackathon in the past, trying to find, or like did a little solution about combining digital and analog solutions, meaning that you have to identify the person in front of you and confirm his or her identity. But that was just like proof of concept on our side, and we're looking, of course, into other directions. If you look at project like Bright ID, or maybe also Democracy.Earth, that is more talking about probabilistic identity, meaning that you probably never have the 100% certainty of having an real human being in front of you, or at least having a unique human being in front of you in a digital sense. And so what they're projecting is more having a lot of services and a lot of solutions that are already existing, and also people were developing more further, having this kind of authentication process in the back, where an algorithm is kind of weighing in the probability of this person you are making maybe a transaction with, or maybe you want to allow him to enter your organization and to have a vote. This kind of organizing algorithm takes into account a lot of those solutions that are already existing. So I would say that you have this combination of a lot of different, you'd say, services that are already making sure that you are a real person, in the sense of maybe you have 10 accounts that you are logged in and you prove that you're a real person. Maybe you send at one service your picture and he proved that you're a real person, and then you can still decide on your organization, on your own organization, do I want to and let people enter my organization with, let's say, 70% probability that he's a human, or 80%. And that is, in my sense, one possibility. The other possibility would be to enable a kind of a standard to make sure that everybody is really like self-sovereign and having their own identity out there. But I think really time will tell what kind of way is going to be out there in the end.
And how can we empower civil society to make changes for good?
How can we empower civil society to make changes for good? I think talking also about this activist mindset. It's about getting more active and getting your voice heard in any kind of way that is possible, meaning going on maybe protests, joining a movement, for instance, maybe joining a lot of NGOs that are out there in the blockchain environment. There are a lot of initiatives going towards the same goal that we're having, and towards more like influence from the citizens itself. And we see this, and we talked in the past to a lot of movements or to a lot of initiatives and startups and blockchain companies that are going towards the same goal, and they're like spread all around the world, you could say. And I'm 100% sure that everyone has one initiative around him where he can offer his or her help and kind of drive this movement, which is, I would say, more a general movement or like a mindset movement that is out there at the moment. Drive it more towards more tangible for mainstream, you could say, more make people more aware of this this alternative, you could say, and that people find more energy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Max and Johann, what is one advice that you have for the community?
One advice is, that's a simple one. So I think in today's society, where we are kind of living in our echo chambers and communicating digitally and read memes that have been digested like 100 or 1,000 times by other people, we often feel very isolated because the whole kind of world is spinning around us, and we and our needs are very important. But actually, we all feel that we want to be part of a community. And I think even though we sometimes feel very lonely, we should always, it is just essential to know that we are, all together and a collective, and we're living on this planet together. And if now is the time to kind of save it from an ecocide, and we can stand up and act on it all together. That's my advice.
And where can people find you?
Oh, they can find us even on Twitter. We have a Slack channel. At least we don't. we kind of piggybacked on an existing Slack channel, you could say.
I think the easiest is Deora.Earth. And just drop us an email or write us a Twitter message, or join our Scuttlebutt server. Scuttlebutt is a really nice protocol that has builds the same topology as kind of our social networks. So there is no man in the middle, and there is no spam, because who would follow a spammer, right?
That is Deora.Earth, EARTH. Just in case, because I was looking for the website a while ago. And thank you, Max and Johann.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, bye.
It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.